The views and opinions expressed on the One Mark podcast are those of the authors or guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of One Mark. Any content provided by our guests or authors are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.
The Municipality Act that was actually introduced around 2000 actually came with that. I think it's a very, very good plan because it actually finds a better way to use resources. And again, it enhances or promote democracy in the country because, citizens of that, municipality obviously need to come in terms of the planning.
Hello, Dumelang, Sanbonani, Khoyadak, Lochani, Molweni. Welcome to the One Mark podcast where we delve into real conversations about civil rights education. I am one of your hosts, Innocent Mohammed, Kharebe ya Motswana, Mo Afrika Borwa, and I am so thrilled to have you join us as we embark on this beautiful, beautiful educational journey. As usual, I'm not alone. I'm with my co-host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, Nengovhela, to yet another episode of the One Mark podcast. My name is Mbali Motso, Ntombi Mswati, Lamvulani Ndlebenkomo, all the way from Mpumalanga. Thank you so much for joining us in today's episode. We want this podcast to be a safe space for everyone to engage openly about civic education and service delivery. We hope to start conversations in your homes, in your cars, or wherever you are.
Now, in today's episode, Mbaz, we will be talking about IDPs, which are Integrated Development Plans.
IDPs.
I have to be honest, today I'm not so familiar with the topic.
Yeah.
But we will unpack about everything that has to do with IDPs, and I'm glad that we have a guest that is a bit clued up. How clued up are you?
Well, when it comes to IDPs, I can say I do have some background knowledge, but I'm no expert,
Yeah.
My general understanding of IDPs is that every municipality is required to have an IDP, which is an integrated development plan. And in this plan, which is a super plan, this is where they outline all of the goals, where they would want, if they want to develop a community. These goals are divided into short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. But like I said, I am no expert, and I'm glad today we have Murendeni, who is an economist and who will be unpacking IDPs for us.
Yes, let's get straight into it.
Welcome, Murendeni, and thank you so much for joining us today. Please kindly introduce yourself to our viewers at home and give us a brief description of what you do.
Okay, thank you so much for that. My name is Murendeni Nengovhela. I'm an economist who works for the financial institution company, JSC, listed. I've been in the industry covering economics for the past, 8 years, and it's a great topic really to actually, cover today around, municipality, planning. So I think, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for coming, Murendeni. And as I mentioned earlier, when we started the show, is that I am not familiar with this topic whatsoever. In our previous episode, we spoke about service delivery, and a lot of things came up. So that's why now today we want to talk about IDPs, which is Integrated Development Plans. Can you maybe just break it down for somebody like me and for our audience who do not understand, what exactly are integrated development plans?
I think really IDP, it's a very critical, tool that any municipality out there can actually use. But how I actually describe it, it's more like coordinated planning really between municipality officials and the citizens, trying to actually make sure that you use resources that are available to actually better the service delivery in that in that municipality, if one can actually, say. So, in terms of the timeline, you can actually take around, 6 to 9 months to actually plan it, and you can revise it, every year if you actually, want, if one can actually, say. So every municipality in the country must actually have one.
Must actually have one. I'm just interested also just to find out. I mean, since we transitioned from apartheid to the democracy of South Africa, did we always have IDPs, or when exactly were they developed, and why was it necessary to develop these development plans for each and every municipality in South Africa?
I think the Municipality Act that was actually introduced around 2000 actually came with that. I think it's a very, very good plan because it actually find a better way to use resources. And again, it enhance or promote democracy in the country because, citizens of that, municipality obviously need to come in terms of the planning, of the development that needs to actually happen in that municipality. And again, it also promotes coordination, between local and national and provincial, departments, if one can actually, say. And again, if one has a plan, it's easy to actually, get people that can fund it. So if an municipality has a better ways of doing things, and then they follow that plan, it's easy to actually invite those additional funds.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for breaking it down like that for us. But in your explanation, you keep on mentioning different people. You mentioned the municipality, you mentioned people. Who exactly are the stakeholders that are involved in implementing or drawing up the IDP plan?
So everyone is actually quite hands-on in terms of developing IDP. So we have like 4, stakeholders where municipality, councillor, and community and other stakeholders like business people.
Yeah.
And again, you can actually mention other government departments. For example, Department of Health. Let's say a municipality wants to build a clinic, for example. Obviously, they need to actually engage with the Department of Health, on that regard.
I see that. And then now, okay, you spoke about the stakeholders and everybody that has to be involved, particularly also the community. Right now, where does the fund come from? Once the final decision is made and we're thinking, okay, we're going to make this plan to develop whatever town, whatever municipality, right? Then where does the fund come from? Is it provincial? Is it national, provincial, or local? Where does the fund come from to implement this plan that we have come up with?
So every municipality in the country, they have their ways of making money. It can be through taxes, collecting perhaps waste in different, locations. That money that is being actually paid, that they actually bill, does support, the IDP or the plans that the city also, got. Obviously, nationally, there is a budget as well that is also allocated to different or to provinces, and then it actually goes down to municipalities, if one can actually, say.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about now. In our previous episode, we spoke about how the budget is allocated, like you just mentioned. Now it's national, it's provincial, and it's local. So now I'm trying to understand, in terms of rural areas where they do not have much. I mean, we understand now that bigger cities, like your metropolitan cities, make money through businesses that are within those towns or cities. What happens now to the more rural areas that actually do not have so much money? What happens to the plans there? Do we now make the plans shorter, smaller, or what happens? Do we not get more budget?
I think, in terms of that, one can actually say, so the government obviously intervenes to actually address, the unjust of the past in that regard. Obviously, if you look at China and Joburg, they actually contribute the most in terms of the national GDP compared to Limpopo. So obviously, the government also needs to actually decide when they actually make their budget in terms of where most of the money needs to actually go in terms of addressing those unjust. So definitely, those guys nationally, they actually make that decision that obviously the fund needs to actually make sure that they actually lead or are invested in those rural areas.
Okay.
Interesting. I like the fact that you're considering rural areas. Now I'm thinking, in your introduction, you mentioned that every municipality is supposed to have an IDP. Is there an IDP plan for rural communities?
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to actually make sure that the people in the rural area are actually well appraised in terms of what is IDP. To be honest, one of my people at home, I don't think they're actually really interested in what the municipality is doing. So I think we need to actually make sure that they are actually knowledgeable, that they actually need to actually be involved in the process of actually developing an IDP, which obviously, it talks to analysis. And the second one, obviously the analysis, you need to actually find the problem. If you don't have water, obviously when the municipality comes to you in the rural area to do that survey or pulse, then you get to actually understand, okay, we don't have water. Then that's the first one.
Yes.
It's part of that package of the IDP. Obviously the second one needs to be strategies, where is the money coming from really in terms of that IDP? And then the third one, obviously, is projects. You're looking at which projects to actually, prioritize. And the other one, it's actually the money. Where is the money more, likely going to actually, come from? I think the other one, in terms of the process of IDP, talks to integration, because there are some small projects like, HIV and AIDS campaign that actually needs to actually be done. So they actually need to actually consolidate. And the last one, obviously, is approval. So in a rural area, you need to actually make sure that you approve what the IDP in that rural area is actually looking at. You need to actually be involved, throughout those steps. Obviously, the last one is actually monitoring, where you're actually just finding out, are they doing what they actually promised, if one can actually say.
Okay. I think, for our podcast and all the conversations that we've had, community participation and involvement has been really the theme and what we try to encourage. So in terms of integrated development plans, how do we encourage that? Is there strategies that we can encourage communities to get involved? And also, are they listened to? If they come together and come and address and say their needs, do we really listen? Or does it end up, what I'm basically trying to say is that, does it end up on the IDP? Are there guidelines? Anything? I mean, we work with the constitution in this country.
Yes.
Are there guidelines that guide us in terms of the IDPs to say the community needs to be listened? How do we encourage communities to get involved in these conversations and actually express their needs? And do they actually make it to the IDP?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we just need to actually make sure that we are part of the process in terms of when they actually start collecting data about the problem. And obviously, when you actually start with the analysis all the way to approval, when you look at the approval, obviously you will know if the issue is actually included, there. So I think one of the biggest issues with us, as a country, has been that we tend to make everything a joke. Really, we don't get to be interested in terms of developments, because we're somewhat fed up in terms of what is really happening. So hence, some of the participation has been low. If one can actually say so, municipality do actually take priority of the the needs of those people that actually participated in the IDP process. And there are also forums. If you look at there's also traditional healers that are also invited to actually participate. They can be councillors. So they are or IDP forums as well. Those are also invited to actually participate. So it's actually a process that each and every municipality is actually supposed to actually try to actually promote to make sure that the intervention is actually robust.
Yeah, I do understand that the lifespan of an IDP is 5 years, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So then that's directly linked to the term of office for councillors when they come in. So what happens when a new council comes in and the IDP that they once drawn up is not completed? Do they just leave it as it is, or What happens then?
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one because
Yeah.
the councillor is actually he chooses really whether he wants to continue with the old IDP or he wants to actually create a new one. It's really quite concerning because you would find that he doesn't really want to do an old one, and then at the end of the day, those priorities are somewhat ignored. So that's quite concerning. But it's actually like you said, it's actually tied to the councillor's office, and he has got a choice in terms of where to go from there.
But as a community, then how do we hold those leaders accountable? I mean, we've been here, we have sat down, we addressed our needs. We said, listen, we need water, we need sanitation, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then now 5 years later, there's a new councillor, like Mbali said.
Yes.
Then the councillor decides, no, you know what, the water project is not a concern for me. Then how do we as the community then hold those leaders accountable?
Obviously, as I've already highlighted, you need to actually make sure that when he actually comes out as a new councillor, highlighting that, okay, or inviting you guys, okay, with your consents, you actually need to make sure that you raise concerns, starting from the water project that you actually worried about. Obviously, if somebody keeps on hearing about the same issue over and over again, you are more likely going to actually prioritize it. And some of the things that are actually happening in the country really recently, if you look at Tshwane or what's happening in Joburg, for example, I think they've had few mayors given what's really happening in terms of this this new strategy around coordination of different parties, and it brings instability really. If you look at what's happening in China right now, where actually people are actually not, workers are not actually collecting waste, so it's really it's quite a mess, to be honest. So I think there needs to be a political will in terms of trying to make sure that IDP plans are actually followed and they are actually maintained.
Am I right to say that as the citizens, as the people who reside in South Africa, have a lot on our hands? I mean, we're saying it so lightly that the councillor now is gone. There's a new one who does not want to prioritize this. Is it now in our hands? We are the ones who have to keep on going, and I mean, we vote. We know that voting is very important. We voted for people in the party, but it's for me, even throughout Murendeni, our other conversations that we've had, it comes up as we, as the citizens, we as the people residing in South Africa, have to be the one chasing and chasing and chasing. I mean, I'm sitting here with you. I did not know that there's an IDP process.
True, yeah.
How do people that are even in rural areas know about it? How do we get involved?
I think it's quite important for organizations such as this to actually, enhance education. Also, going to rural areas where they don't have, internet, and they are unlikely going to actually have access to this podcast. Someone is to actually go to the ground to actually make sure that message actually comes across, and people are actually well knowledgeable that okay, you can do this. You can actually go complain. You can be part of the process in terms of planning your city. And I think the other one that's quite important, it's voting. I think, to be honest, the voting turnout has been low, mainly for the youth. They actually need to actually make sure that they vote so that it does make our country better, and getting the right leaders in the positions of power.
I was actually taken aback by something that you said, and you also added and said when new councillors come in, from my knowledge of IDPs is that there has to be consultative meetings. So during these consultative meetings is when the councillors or the different stakeholders, they consult with the community to understand their needs, what it is that they need.
True.
It's not a top-down approach. So they should hear from the community what it is that we need to do. So when a new councillor comes in, I'm just lost. I'm lost there.
Just to actually reiterate, really, I think obviously he's not going to be like in the office in that first day and be like, okay, here is my IDP. Obviously, the process is quite similar.
Yes.
You have to actually, it's 6 to 9 months. You have to go out to the same people, that already have this IDP. And again, engage with them So in most cases, you'd find that, that councillor perhaps, okay, just prioritize the old one or just adopt the old one just to make sure that people are happy. It's quite a work, and obviously 5 years is quite a short period of time for a councillor, and you would really want to be judged as that councillor that have actually done a great work in the community.
Yeah. Are there any success stories that we can share?
If you look at the Auditor General report
Yes.
that has been, published recently, they are like 15% of 257 municipalities that have done or have had like clean audits. Unfortunately, most of them, which is like 52% of them, comes from Western Cape. And if you look at one of the stats that the Auditor General has, it's actually those municipalities that had reported consecutive clean audits. I think they've had 33 municipalities. Most of them comes from Western Cape. I think one that has done very well is West Coast District Municipality in the Western Cape. They've done very well. And again in Gauteng we have Midval.
Yes, we do.
Midval have reported like 9 clean audits. It seems like they're actually running their business very well. I think Ecuador, if I remember correctly, they have like 3 audits. And if you remember, if you look at the report really, if you look at Free State, there isn't anything that talks to clean audits. It's quite concerning really, to be honest. And I think they also have the other category that talks to municipalities that their finances are in a dire, state. Tshwane, for the past 2 years, it's not looking good in terms of the finances. I think they owe Eskom quite, a lot of money, if one can actually, say. Hence, we are actually in this position where they are unable to pay workers increases that they actually demand.
But what are the challenges, though? What are the challenges that municipalities have? Because you mentioned now in Tshwane that they are owing Eskom a lot of money because of maybe not being able to collect money from citizens. And I know also in the Northwest as well, Bujanala as well, it's a bit of a struggle in terms of water as well. What are municipalities' challenges, what is it that we need to understand as citizens that municipalities are struggling with, therefore they cannot implement the IDPs?
I think the first one, obviously, is money. So obviously they would need a lot of money. But I think it also boils down to mismanagement, really. There's like a lot of corruption that's happening. We both know that. And then obviously, for example, in Free State, there's been a lot of reports that has been that has actually come out from those municipalities. So finances are definitely the issue. And mismanagement is actually quite concerning. And again, if you look at what's really happening in the country, we are facing shortage of electricity. And people are, some people be like, I can't be paying for something that I'm not receiving, really. So it's also it boils down to, it goes all the way up to actually national level in terms of doing the things better. And that makes things easy for municipality to do their job at the end of the day.
Okay. I'd just like to take us back to, you mentioned that the municipalities were actually doing well, right? And you mentioned a few municipalities where they were doing well and they're clean audits. And I've had an opportunity previously to do, we were running a campaign where we were visiting different municipalities, and Midval was one of those municipalities. My question then is, when those municipalities receive this clean audits from the Auditor General, does that mean they are able to meet the needs, all the needs of the communities on the IDP?
True. I think, to be honest, it's tough to actually please everyone. But again, I think, if as a citizen, if you look at the report of the municipality, they'll tell you that they've actually spent, let's say, for example, 2 billion rand in this specific project, and you can see that it's running. As a citizen, you get to understand, okay, perhaps, this is better. And again, obviously, there will be other part of the community that's not, quite, happy. Obviously, municipality prioritize different projects. They might be in line in terms of that project to be completed, if one can actually say. I think it boils down to municipality being able to be honest and clear about communication and their plans. So, and again, it also goes back to citizens being involved throughout all the process of implementing IDP. Obviously, in Midval, you'll find that perhaps 60% of them are actually excited about the developments, there.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a clearer now picture of what IDPs are, before actually sitting here down today. As we close off, I just want to ask you, are there any recommendations or advice that you can give to municipalities or the communities at large in terms of developing, maintaining, and also improving their IDPs?
Yeah, true. I think I'll actually start with me. Obviously, I also need to actually make sure that I'm actually involved throughout the process as well. So it's a me and you process, really. I think all of us in the room and out there need to actually make sure that where they actually stay, they are involved in the process. We are busy. I don't think we're going to be, entirely involved in all the process, but at least let's try to actually make sure that we know what's really happening. We also contribute, because before approval, it's actually done. They are, the IDP draft is actually sent out for comments.
Okay.
So you have to actually make sure that you're actually engaged. And again, when we are not happy with certain developments in the municipality, let's refrain from banning things, because at the end of the day, we are actually, damaging our own infrastructure.
My question would be, how accessible is the IDP to the public?
I'm sure if you can actually go to your own municipality, just walk in there, you'll actually get the copy. So I think it's an easy process, really. If you look at, I was actually browsing City of Cape Town yesterday. It's there online as well. So obviously those are actually quite developed, municipalities. But you have to actually make sure that you actually engage with the councillors and so forth to actually be able to access the IDP.
Thank you so much, Murendeni. I think this has been such an educational episode for me personally.
Yeah, for me too.
And I hope you at home, as the audience, have also got to know and understand what IDPs, which stands for Integrated Development Plans, mean, and that you must go and stay engaged and actually get involved. And Murendeni, I think we must continue the conversation, because I still do not understand how communities must know about IDPs if it's not out there. We must know. When do we get to, when do we meet as a forum? Where is the forum?
Okay.
And I think that we might unpack that as we continue, maybe on another episode, Bows.
Thank you so much, Murendeni. We do have a favorite question that we always ask our guests. As the 2024 elections are looming, what message would you give to people, our viewers at home there?
To be honest, let's just go vote and make sure that you are actually getting the right leaders in government to actually make this country a better place to actually live in.
You've heard it yourself. Let's go out there and vote to make sure that all these needs that we need, we get them. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Please make sure that you follow us on all our social media pages. And please don't forget to tell your friends, to tell their friends to follow us. Until then, thank you.
Until then, stay curious and stay engaged. And together, let's unlock the power of knowing our rights. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for having me.